Hi everyone, and welcome to the Fire Mountain Gems and Beads Jewelry Making Studio. Today we're doing another one of our lessons on seed bead stitches. And today's stitch is the tubular brick stitch. This is a great stitch for making maybe a toggle bar if you're using a finer seed bead than these. Toggle bar, it's a fairly stiff one. It doesn't bend a lot. It bends this way a little bit. And also, you could use it for perhaps a big bead cap on a luxurious tassel. So lots of uses for this stitch, and I think everyone should know how to do it. Let's get going on that. First of all, I'm going to start with a very simple stop bead. It's literally called a stop bead because it's to try and stop your beads from falling off the end of your thread. So I'm just going down to near the end of my thread. And then I'm going back through the same bead, the same direction, not back through, I'm going through the same direction to make sort of a loop around the bead, and that prevents it from being pulled off the end very easily. I can, of course, move it, but not easily. And it's not going to be part of our final design. It's just there hanging out, keeping the beads from falling off the end. That's all it's for. It's a stop bead. Okay, from that, we're going to start to make a ladder stitch. That's how all the brick stitches start. And a ladder stitch is where you're going to put the beads side by side right next to each other. And in this case, we start by picking up 2 beads, taking them down to our stop bead. Then I'm going to go through that first bead again in the same direction so that when I pull this tight, the 2 beads line up side by side next to each other. Then I'll add another bead, but I want to add it here. So to get to there, I'll have to go through this bead first, add 1 more bead, go through that bead again, and make sure this one lines up side by side, creating a ladder, so to speak. And all these beads, I'm going to make them line up side by side. You make them behave too. The challenge on any of these ladder stitches is to keep that tension tight so that those beads will line up side by side. Don't let them slip over sideways. Again, I have to get to my end bead, so I'm going to go through that bead, come out the top, add another bead, and make this one, add it as a rung to the ladder. And I need to get to the end, so I'm going to go down through it again. Pick up another bead. And I keep doing this until I reach the length I want for the circumference of my tube. On that sample I showed you earlier, I used 9 beads. So let's do this until I get 9 beads in my ladder. Double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1 more bead. And we're going to get to the end. And now we can start thinking about tubes. So here I have a ladder of 9 beads. I'm going to roll that in toward itself and stitch these 2 ends together to form my tube. Go down through that one. Pull them in together and back up through here. And you can do that a couple of times if you want to make sure it's nice and secure. I'm going to go through that one more time just to make sure. Don't really have to. Just me. Now we can start on our tubular brick stitch. Now, brick stitch looks almost exactly like peyote stitch, which many of you are probably familiar with. And the difference is that in peyote stitch, you'd be stitching through beads. In brick stitch, we're going to be stitching underneath these threads. So we'll start this row, this second row here, and I'm going to do the white with 2 white beads. And then I'm going to go under this thread right here. And just like our ladder stitch, we have to make sure they sit on top of each other. And then I'm going to go up through that bead right there. And then we keep going. So it's add another white bead. Now we only do one at a time. White bead underneath this thread. Do I have my good glasses on? Yes, I do. Underneath that thread. Pull that through and go back through that same white bead. Pull everything tight. Picking up another white bead, and I go under this thread, pull that down, and go back through that same white bead. Is this easy? Are you having fun with this yet? I'm going to go a little faster. Under the thread, back through the white bead, pick up another bead, under the thread, make sure everybody lines up, back through that same white bead I just added, and we're going to keep going there. There we go. And then we want to, just like we did on the ladder stitch at the beginning, we want to join these two beads together. I like to go down through here and under the thread at the same time. It's just easier. And for some people also, it makes it easier to put this on a dowel or a pencil or a paintbrush or something like that to help it maintain its tubular shape. And we can start another row. And the second row, we do just like we did that, or the third row I should say, just like we did the second row, by adding two beads at once, going under a thread, make them line up, and go back up. And we're ready to start row 3. There you go. Super simple, easy, fun to work on. Tubular brick stitch. This is what you get after time. And here's an example of one already made up into a design. Thanks so much for joining me for this great tutorial. I hope you practice and make some of these cool things. Thanks for joining me. Happy beading!